Hi, Rich Carrubba for bowlingball.com. Let's talk about bowling lane oil carry down. Well, what is a bowling lane oil carry down? First, I'm gonna and also by the way, I want to talk to you bowlers that are pretty experienced. You've been bowling for a while, and maybe you're averaging 180, 170, 190, 150. It doesn't matter. Somebody that has been experienced enough to know, and especially if you own some of the modern bowling balls, it's important to understand what the oil carry down does. For example, oil carry down simply means that the oil retained in the bowling ball passing through the oil part of the lane when you deliver the ball will be carried down because the ball rolls on the dry part of the lane surface beyond the final oiling distance from the foul line. So if a standard lane pattern is about 40 feet before the completely dry back end occurs, that's when the strips of oil or the stripes of oil from the oil being retained in the pores of the ball, from the ball traveling through the heaviest concentrations of oil, starting in the front end of the lane to the mid lane, and then getting to the back end, it's going to pull these strips of oil down the lane. And when you get people playing different angles on the lane, or you're shooting spares, you're moving around, the oil is going to pull, and you'll see strips across the lane. Well, that carry down does affect the amount of traction and the overall look the bowling ball will get in motion-wise as it enters into the back end of the lane after quite a bit of bowling is done. So you'll see changes in lane conditions in your league play, for example, maybe halfway through or at the end of the first game and so on. That's why you'll see a lot of better bowlers or the high average players, for example, switch bowling balls on occasion, or they'll certainly make adjustments and change their angle on the lane when the oil carry down affects the ball from reacting as it did when you first began your session. Now, the bowling balls themselves will absorb oil at a different rate. Well, it makes sense if you get a solid cover bowling ball, I say a solid reactive resin ball, where it has a lot of pores in the ball, but the ball is solid color. It's going to it's more pliable of a cover, for example, than a stiffer plastic ball type cover or even a pearlized bowling ball cover stock. That ball will retain oil in the pores of the ball, and you'll see a wider strip down the lane, and it'll also probably retain more oil and increase the carry down effect more so than a stiffer cover that has a narrow footprint on the lane surface and one that won't retain oil in the pores of the ball. All the bowling balls will move oil around, but more porous and more pliable bowling balls with larger pores in the cover stock due to the composition and the material used in the cover stock at manufacturing will govern the amount of carry down. So typically, if you have a shorter distance oiling pattern, say 35 to 40 feet, you're going to get a greater carry down effect than bowling ball oil patterns that go a little longer, 42 to 45 feet, because there's less amount of dry back end, less distance to the pins from where the oil distance stops, the longer the maintenance people decide to run the oil pattern. And also as the ball gets down the lane and there's less oil toward the end of the oil pattern than there is up front on the front part of the lane, then the ball is going to pull less oil or carry less oil down the lane. So the distance oil does affect the severity of the oil pattern, and distance is something we don't hear people talk about a lot. Maybe your coaches might, but it's important to know that because it determines where the break point is, the distance of the oil, if it's closer to the edge of the lane or maybe a little closer to the center of the lane. And it depends. It also helps govern the carry down effect. So those are things that you also want to think about. And when you read our article on Bowlversity section, the bowling lane oil carry down, then you'll get a little bit more insight into what we're discussing. Now, the oil carry down, as we said, can determine ball motion. You might want to make adjustments through experimentation. Bowling balls, your ball speed, your release technique, and your angles. As the oil carries down the lane, and you've got to make an adjustment to allow the ball to finish consistently to the pocket, you want to regulate your ball speed. If you increase your speed, regulate it after it's increased. Try not to throw one slow, one fast. Also, what you want to do is try to get a consistent release so the ball has the same axis tilt and the same amount of rev rate from delivery to delivery, because it'll help it skid consistently and then take the ball reaction on the drier part of the back end of the lane. So those are things that you need to prepare, experiment with, but most importantly, the ball surface cover stock preparation. you can change the surface of the bowling ball. You can get it into the pro shop. You can increase the surface texture or minimize the amount of texture. You can even polish it. You can increase the skid length or the leg potential of the bowling ball by what you do in the pro shop, by the type of resurface or rescreening techniques and the grit pads used on the high-speed ball spinners to help prepare the surface precisely to match up where you bowl. This is where good communication with your pro shop operator and or your bowling coach can help you. And you might want to talk to people around you who are bowling well consistently and talk to them about the type of ball they use or the ball cover stock they use, because that's what's in contact with the lane surface and what mostly affects the carry down. So all those different factors are things that are necessary to consider when you're learning about carry down and learning about making adjustments from that. We hope some of these tips and some of this information helps you understand bowling lane oil carry down. And we hope that you'll get out to the practice lane, you'll practice, you'll get to know your equipment well, you'll get to know what changes you can make to your equipment, and if you need to add a new bowling ball to your arsenal, you'll know what to add next so it makes sense and it matches up best where you bowl most frequently. Anyway, thanks, good luck to you, and get out and practice soon.